I am a goldsmith. Yes, I use gold amongst the scores of other materials which I work and shape to the needs of my imagination. But I feel that being a goldsmith is really more a statement of philosophy and mental approach to what I create.
What are you actually doing at the moment?
It's the Phoenix centrepiece, and I'm just massing out the feather forms before detailing them. It's rather like working clay. It's to sort of mass it up into the rhythms I want it. In this I'm following, because it's as it were the inspiration for the piece, the forms found in a pair, in fact, of birds which have been added to a pair of Meissen vases from the mid-18th century. Having sort of roughed it into the shape and how the feather forms work, I'm now engraving, as it were, the wax and cutting it. And here, all the time, I'm just dealing with light, because these are just surface marks which should suggest to the brain that they're looking at feathers. Modelling. I don't want to chase a casting ever. By chasing I mean chiselling and compacting it with little punches and leaving textures which again are dealing with light, with tiny amounts of shadow. But I think you can achieve that with the wax and a clean cast. And I think there's something quite honest about carving the wax and then leaving it as far as possible to become the metal that it's its destiny to become.
Well, it's a glorious day, and I'm standing here in one of my favourite Canaletto paintings, and it's one which happens to be in the Wallace Collection. In that view, Canaletto set his scene with a cast of ladies and gentlemen, children, priests, beggars, and his much-loved dogs. You can't doubt that when you look at any Canalettos, you'll find these wonderful dogs, usually with those curling tails. Yeah. And this one certainly appears in the piece that I've made in response to this great painting.
So how did it get here?
The first Marquis of Hertford was on the Grand Tour towards the end of the 1730s, and whilst in Venice he bought this, probably through Consul Smith. He was a real Mr. Fix-It in Venice at the time, and he acted as agent to Canaletto. So if you wanted a Canaletto, you'd better get it through him, because you'd get a good one and you'd get it quicker. Just across the Grand Canal from us here stands a small white palazzo with its feet in the water. It is called the Palazzo Balbi Mangili Valmarana. But I think it should be named Palazzo Smith, after the man who gave it its elegant Palladian facade, the British consul Joseph Smith. I have kidnapped many of these wonderful characters and frozen them in gold in order to install them in small memorial niches in the base of the gallery glass that I have made for Consul Smith, who after all was Canaletto's agent, but he was much more than that.
Kevin, why did you pick this?
Well, I think they all picked me, really, in a sense, but, I mean, look at her. How can you resist her? She became a superstar overnight at the age of 16 and clearly had a great performing charisma, which is why Lancret, I think, has painted her in this way, which is very theatrical. It seems like a backdrop and flats, and then these very theatrically placed musical groups, each with a different sound. The pipe and tabor, the recorder, 2 violins, and here a bassoon.
What did you do with Madame Camargo?
I collaged in layers, like a theatre, with the false perspectives, and made a piece which I then extended with oil paint, and then I made a jewel which lifts out of that, and that jewel is Madame Camargo dancing. Truth. Don't breathe in. And it looks as though we've got a bird. Well, this is one phoenix which has risen from the flames. I should like you not to listen to me, but instead to listen to the sound of this painting. This is the sound it has been making silently for the last 2 3/4 centuries. It is the Wallace Collection's Grand Turk giving a concert to his mistress, painted by Carl van Loo and featuring, among other occult identities, a portrait of his wife, Christina Somnis, a leading opera star at the time. It is she who is seated at the French 2-manual harpsichord, playing and singing, as we can see from her music, Si caro si, that final aria from Handel's opera Admeto, which resolves misunderstandings and placates the love between husband and wife. Within the painting, I think I've been able to identify Christina's almost then equally well-known musician brothers as cellist and first violinist, but more crucially, given the musical clue, I have found lurking in the shadows behind his wife the presence of the artist himself. It led to my own work, a jewel, in fact a brooch, which, like Carl and Christina's, is a marriage of 2 senses. I have set my detachable jewel within a painted wall mount, contrived as a kind of palimpsest of the canvas's hidden geometry and silent music. Well, I think it's one of the most compelling portraits of all time, and I think certainly one of the Wallace's greatest treasures. it sums up the whole thesis of what I'm doing, in that it is this time regained. It is leaping across a time to a moment, which is a communication between son and father, father and son. And every time somebody comes to view this painting, they are standing in Rembrandt's shoes, because this is the distance that he would have been from that canvas when he painted it.
What have you done to try to recapture for us that time, that moment?
Well, I'm a goldsmith, so I use goldsmith's materials, and I've made a brooch which goes into a wall mount. But here I was lucky, because I found, within all the things I collect, some wonderful pieces of petrified wood, which are a strange simulacrum for the chiaroscuro voids that browns and greys that are in this canvas. And of course, the feature that I've made is the hat, because this wonderful glow of red, which is a further link between father and son, because there is a contemporary self-portrait, which is in Stuttgart, in which Rembrandt paints himself with the same hat.
Do you find it incredibly difficult to control everything that is going on, to concentrate and draw it in to the point in hand?
No, I think you separate things, but don't forget that the energy is always to do the work, to find what it is that's itching, that has to be resolved. So these things are just different colours within that composition, if you like. It's
And had you lived 400 years ago, could you have used your idea with a workshop, and therefore everything would have sprung out of you, but you would have had people...
Gosh, isn't that wonderful? Yes.
to have produced
I certainly do with that now, because I mean, I really am. If I seem tired, it's because I'm working very, very long hours in order to finish the pieces for the show. Because the show's in June, but the pieces have to be finished the end of March, I'm told. I'm told.
The bird, the egg, and the main upper nest all fixed together with one screw. And locating that screw can be a bit tricky. For me, making is believing, and it is living. It is how I see the world and try to understand my place within it and within time.